This brave attorney general bringing this lawsuit shows how one of the biggest banks in the world at the most senior levels were facilitating a sex ring. A nice update in the Jeffrey Epstein saga. JP Morgan pulled the levers of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking operation, U.S. Virgin Islands says in new lawsuit. A new lawsuit from the U.S. Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise George accuses J.P. Morgan Chase of facilitating Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking scheme and covering it up. Human trafficking, the lawsuit alleges, was the principal business of Epstein's accounts at the bank. But the bank turned a blind eye for more than a decade because of the deals and clients that Epstein brought and promised to bring to the bank. Epstein died in jail in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. His death unleashed a flood of litigation over the $630 million fortune he left behind and a compensation fund for more than 200 people who claimed to be his victims. His arrest also led to a widespread reckoning for his powerful friends and associates, including Bill Gates, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, Les Wexner, and Elon Musk, as well as the organizations like Harvard University, JP Morgan, and Deutsche Bank. I'm sorry if I'm confused there, but his arrest also led to a widespread reckoning for his powerful friends and associates, including Bill Gates, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, Les Wexner, and Elon Musk. Oh, those guys had a powerful reckoning? I'm sorry, I thought they were among the richest people in the world and most powerful people in the world still. I must be confused. And the organizations like Harvard University, JP Morgan, and Deutsche Bank, oh my, how they have fallen out of grace and power. There was no reckoning for those institutions or those people. And funny how they also don't list Bill Clinton as one of his associates in this article. What is going on? Earlier this year, the U.S. Virgin Islands settled a separate lawsuit first brought in 2020 with Epstein's estate and its executors. The estate was required to pay $105 million in addition to half of the proceeds from the sale of Little St. James, Epstein's Island, where accusers say they were raped and trafficked. The new lawsuit, filed on Tuesday, emerged from the same investigation and alleges J.P. Morgan knowingly facilitated, sustained, and concealed the human trafficking network operated by Jeffrey Epstein and financially benefited from his participation. J.P. Morgan knowingly, negligently, and unlawfully provided and pulled the levers through which the recruiters and victims were paid and was indispensable to the operation and concealment of the Epstein trafficking enterprise, the lawsuit says. One of Epstein's accounts with JP Morgan, named Southern Trust, didn't perform the cutting-edge consulting services Epstein claimed. In reality, the lawsuit alleges, it was a conduit for payments to foreign women, credit cards, airplanes, and other instrumentalities. The bank and its employees knew they were facilitating Epstein's sexual abuse and sex trafficking conspiracy to coerce young women and underage girls to engage in commercial sex acts, according to the lawsuit. But, according to the suit, the bank concealed its conduct by failing to comply with red flag laws. The section of the lawsuit that details how JP Morgan allegedly turned a blind eye to Epstein's conduct is heavily redacted. JP Morgan ignored numerous red flags and failed to comply with federal banking regulations until years later after JP Morgan was no longer benefiting from Epstein's business, the lawyer says. So they eventually complied when they were no longer making money off this guy. Insane. A representative for JP Morgan declined to comment. It makes sense. What the fuck are they going to say to make themselves look better in this situation? Apparently nothing. The decisions to keep Epstein as a client and to move his money around were advocated and approved at the senior levels of JP Morgan, including by a former chief executive and its asset management division who had an inappropriate relationship with Epstein. Details related to that official, Jess Stanley, were redacted from the lawsuit. According to an investigation by British regulators, Staley and Epstein exchanged over 1,200 emails between 2008 and 2012. Staley stepped down from his position as CEO of Barclays in 2021 as he disputed how the regulators characterized his relationship with Epstein. In addition to the U.S. Virgin Islands, an anonymous Jane Doe filed lawsuits against J.P. Morgan and Deutsche Bank in November, alleging the financial institutions benefited from Epstein's sex trafficking operation. Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, was found guilty in December of 2021 of trafficking girls for sex with Epstein and sexually abusing them herself. At her criminal trial in Manhattan, a J.P. Morgan official presented documents showing that Epstein gave Maxwell at least $30 million between 1999 and 2007. Another witness who testified in Maxwell's trial said that one of Epstein's jets, which prosecutors said he used to traffic women for sex, was owned by a company called Hyperion Air. The same company, Hyperion Air, is identified by the U.S. Virgin Islands Attorney General as one of Epstein's accounts with J.P. Morgan. Wow. We already know Epstein was connected with some of the most powerful people and institutions in this country. But this brave attorney general bringing this lawsuit shows how one of the biggest banks in the world at the most senior levels were facilitating a sex ring. Oh, what do you know? Joe Biden arrives in U.S. Virgin Islands to relax between holidays. The Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands brings a lawsuit accusing J.P. Morgan Chase Bank of helping facilitate a sex operation ring at the highest levels. And would you look at that? Biden arrives in U.S. Virgin Islands to relax between the holidays. Okay, he's just getting some R&R, right? Oh, look at this, another article. Virgin Islands Attorney General loses her job days after suing J.P. Morgan Chase in connection with the Jeffrey Epstein probe. Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise George lost her job after suing J.P. Morgan Chase in connection with the Virgin Islands Attorney General Denise George lost her job after suing J.P. Morgan Chase in connection with her Jeffrey Epstein investigation. The Virgin Islands top prosecutor, who reached more than $105 million statement with Jeffrey Epstein's estate, lost her job days after suing J.P. Morgan Chase in connection with her probe. The federal lawsuit filed in New York accused the bank of having facilitated, sustained, and concealed Epstein's human trafficking network. Days after the AG's filing of the lawsuit on New Year's Eve, George was removed from her post. Local news outlets in the Virgin Islands reported that the Attorney General had not informed the territory's governor, Albert Bryan, about her impending enforcement actions. George's office did not immediately respond to Law and Crime's email requesting a comment on Monday, a federally observed holiday. The development was first reported by the Virgin Islands Consortium, citing anonymous sources. Bryan subsequently confirmed George's termination without providing an explanation for it in a statement sent to multiple news outlets. I relieved Denise George of her duties as Attorney General this weekend, Bryan wrote in a statement sent to Law and Crime. I thank her for her service to the people of the territory during the past 4 years as Attorney General and wish her the best in her future endeavors. The governor's spokesperson declined to elaborate, telling Law and Crime, I am not at liberty to discuss details on personnel matters. The governor's spokesperson declined to elaborate, telling Law and Crime, I am not at liberty to discuss details on personnel matters. Bryan reportedly appointed Assistant Attorney General Carol Thomas Jacobs to serve as acting Attorney General. Thomas Jacobs, who did not immediately respond to Law and Crime's press inquiry, also worked on the Epstein investigation court docs show. George had led the office when Thomas Jacobs signed her name to a complaint suing Epstein's estate under the territory's Criminally Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act enforcement action, the local equivalent of a racketeering lawsuit. The action accused the estate's executors of acting as Epstein's indisputable captains. Both denied those allegations and did not concede wrongdoing under the recent settlement, which called upon the estate to keep providing documents for the Attorney General's, quote, ongoing investigation. The case that George filed against J.P. Morgan Chase before her departure has been marked as related to the proposed class action lawsuit filed in the same court against J.P. Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank, currently pending before U.S. Senior District Judge Jed Rakoff. Those Now, consolidated cases have been scheduled for the trial in the Southern District Court in the summer of 2023 in New York. So, the Virgin Islands Attorney General sues J.P. Morgan Chase for being heavily involved and facilitating Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring. Biden goes on vacation to the Virgin Islands. And then we have the governor of the Virgin Islands firing the attorney general and saying, I just fired them. Good luck. We're not at liberty to discuss why. Interesting world we live in.
What's the matter? The CIA got you pushing too many pencils? Huh?